First of all, I agree with Mr. Apia Dankwa that it is important for Ghana and other countries to learn important lessons from what is happening in Mozambique. Because I think that the same principles apply, the same methods of evaluation and assessment and so on ought to apply. And it's absolutely necessary, for us who are only 30 days from a crucial election to learn the important lessons. Now, the first thing I'd like to say is that when any government comes to the conclusion that it needs the army to put down the civilian population, that government needs to realize that its end has come. When the police service, when normal political persuasion, when all the other means of resolving conflict collapses, and we have to bring in the armed forces, whose sole responsibility is to defend the territorial integrity of our countries, then it means that the government has failed. At that point, the relationship between government and people is that of enemies. And at that point, no government has the moral authority to continue to be in office. You understand? Now, if the Mozambican government is considering deploying troops on civilians, it means that its own arrangements for persuasion, for negotiation, and so on has collapsed. It also means that the police service has not been able to contain the anger of the people. Clearly, this ought to be the end of the Mozambican government. But you see, our governments don't learn. Our leaders sometimes don't think. And they continue repeating all the mistakes of the past. The record shows us that when we get to this point, coup d'etats become almost inevitable. And I do hope that our friends in Mozambique will learn the important lessons, try to use peaceful means of resolving the conflict before them, seek assistance from friendly countries and international organizations and so on. Maybe that will help. If it doesn't help, perhaps an order for re-election or election rerun may be useful. Bottom line, the government has to give way. I mean, after 49 years, what is it that the government of Mozambique wants to do and has not been able to do after 49 years? Clearly there's a problem, there's a crisis that it needs to be resolved. Now, in Ghana, some things are happening that we don't talk about, perhaps because we are uncomfortable to talk about them and so on. I've seen all these useless threats from the United States Embassy in Accra that if things don't go well, they will intervene. And yesterday I was reading from the social media that they have denied Brian Achampong a visa to the US, and the ambassador is threatening that anybody that they think is obstructing peaceful elections as well will be denied a visa. First of all, we have to make it very clear that the United States is not heaven. If you don't go to the United States, you won't die. I mean, this whole thing about going to the United States being some wonderful privilege which is extended to citizens as well, it should end. We may have problems with our electoral systems. We may have reservations about our electoral systems and so on. But those matters ought to be resolved by the Ghanaian people, not the U.S. Embassy. Because we have seen what U.S. intervention in Africa, especially in Ghana, has done to us. We don't want the U.S. involved in our elections. They intervened in 1966. As a result of their intervention, today we are having Dumso. And it's clear. Because if the nuclear program which had been started by the Kwame Nkrumah government and the Bui Dam project had not been stopped in 1966, we would not be suffering Dumso today. So they are responsible for it. As a result of their intervention, we've privatized more than 400 state enterprises. Only 2 of them have survived. That accounts for the unemployment crisis that we have. It accounts for, the lack of balance between imports and exports and so on. We don't want another U.S. intervention in Ghana. And if anybody has an idea of massing up the Marines and so on, they should stop. Because they won't have it easy like 1966. There's a clear warning to all the neo-colonial and imperialist forces who think that Ghana is their backyard and that they can walk in and trample upon our rights and do as they please. Those days are gone. There are forces on the ground with the capacity to mobilize to stop useless foreign intervention. NPP may misbehave, no problem. The Electoral Commission may misbehave, no problem. We have the capacity for righting what is wrong without U.S. assistance and other Western assistance. Clear?